Hello and greetings. Welcome to our first Fireside Chat for Day 2 GatherVerse Women's Health Summit. My name is Lingitao, Communications Director at GatherVerse, and on this particular Fireside Chat, we're going to talk about leading from wholeness, healing, legacy, and community strength. And with me, I have a special guest. I would really request her to introduce herself, tell us who she is and what inspired her to join us today, and where she's streaming live from. So, Isioma, please tell us who you are.
Hi, Lynn. Trust you can hear me. I am super excited to be here today. My name is Isioma Okolo. I'm Nigerian by origin. I do have many countries that I feel very close to. One of them is Kenya, where I spent a number of years, and also the UAE. So I've had the opportunity of partnering with leaders across Africa and across the Middle East. But I'm joining you here today from Lagos, Nigeria. And I'm really looking forward to having a really important conversation around wholeness. It's not often that we have conversations around wholeness. Yes, we're very familiar with the terminology about wellness, but what does it mean? What does wholeness mean? And for me, this is not just a professional journey. This is a personal journey. Having come from a very rich and accelerated career in a multinational setting, I now help leaders to lead and live from a place of wholeness because I experienced where my body fell apart, and I have had personal experience with burnouts, and I've had experiences in terms of what it means to align, what it means to build, and what it is to contribute to society from that place. Yeah.
Wow, Ichema, that is very impressive. And I'm just curious. I'm approaching this fireside with a lot of curiousness, especially when you said there's a big difference between wellness and wholeness. But let me just pick that up and drag that thread to our first chart. What does it mean to lead from wholeness, especially for leaders, executives who are female?
Yeah. I think that's a question I often get a lot. You know, what does it mean to lead from a place of wholeness? I think that the current setup in a lot of organizations is that leadership is really output based. It's very performance driven. There's nothing really wrong with performance in that sense, but it's always what is behind, what is driving that performance, right? So there's a lot of emphasis on hitting targets. There's a lot of emphasis on outcome, on productivity, but no one is really talking about how do we get there? What is the cost of doing that? And so for me, leading from a place of wholeness is really acknowledging and embracing the fact that, we are multi-layered personalities, we're multi-layered people, and that I'm on this journey towards ensuring that my body is healthy because I need a healthy body to do my everyday life, to ensure that my mind is resilient, to ensure that my emotions are well regulated, to ensure that I'm living from a place of a strong identity, knowing who I am, and to come from a place where I'm doing meaningful work and actually contributing to society. So I see this at that as that meeting point where there is an alignment between all these things that we are working towards. And I've come to realize that leading from that place, there is a difference between when you are performing to because you are under pressure, but you are performing from a place that you understand who you are. You're performing from a place where it is very much aligned with your values, that when you are confronted by decisions, you're very clear about the decisions that you are making, that you are very clear about what is driving that your values are aligned with the decisions that you make and the way that you lead your people. I find that this is the conversation that really needs to happen that triggers a wider conversation around sustainable leadership, where people are not breaking down because they have to do their jobs every day, where female leaders are not breaking down because there is a lot of responsibility. And that's how we build legacy. If legacy is the thing that outlives us, then surely we need to be able to take care of this body. We need to be able to take care of this mind, and we need to take care of the thing that drives us. And it cannot be happening piecemeal. So it's like we're living this fragmented life where we think that if I do this, it has no impact on this. But what happens when we start looking at our lives from an integrated perspective and living from that place and leading from that place? So that's what I think it means to lead from a place of wholeness rather than from a performance based mindset.
Yes, Istiama, that was beautifully said. And I want to just follow up with what you said. And it's very good to acknowledge that that is how legacies are built. Legacies are not built by performance only, but by also keeping in touch with our bodies and taking care of them with every might that we can. And I just want to follow up on the issue of burnout because there are so many women, we've had them, they're career women, they barely have time for themselves. And something like burnout may creep in without their knowledge. So, why is exhaustion, burnout normalized in workplaces, and how can that be addressed?
Yeah. I smile, I'm sure, as you can see, because
Yes.
I have both personal and professional experience with this. I do not think that organizations set out to normalize burnout. I don't think that's the
Okay.
intent. But what
Tell us more.
happens is that we normalize the behaviors that cause burnout. You see,
I
so
hear
we've
you.
normalized things like, walking past work hours, consistently. I want to use the word consistently. There are moments when we feel like we have something to close out. But when we are doing that consistently, when we're working weekends consistently, without thinking about the impact on our family, the impact on our community, what else can we contribute? And life is just that I need to do this thing. I need to, and when we're working on sick leave, some people are off on sick and they're still working, you know.
Mm,
And so it is that behavior. And when we see these things in organizations, we tend to term them as dependability. This person is reliable. This person is committed. This person is ambitious. They're ready to burn down the midnight oil every day. And so these are the things that are rewarded in organizations: ambition, reliability, dependability. And so what happens is that we are inadvertently, celebrating the behaviors that leads to exhaustion. We normalize that and we reward that. And so exhaustion becomes almost a badge of honor. It's the thing that makes me feel, it's the signal that I send that this is my way of showing that I am committed to my organization, that I'm loyal to this organization. And unfortunately, what happens is that most of the time we attach our value to that. Now, where does this come in for women? Now we know that women naturally in whether it's a male-dominated environment or not, there is a tendency for us to consciously or unconsciously work 10 times harder because we feel like we need to prove something. We need to prove ourselves. But unfortunately, what happens is just like you said, burnout creeps on you. It doesn't happen suddenly. It starts little by little, and we don't see it, but we keep pushing because we need to deliver. Who would I be if I'm not the woman that is strong? Who would I be if I'm not the woman that is able to deliver on this thing? So we keep pushing, and then finally our bodies break down. So what's happening is that I experienced that firsthand. I began to have severe gut health issues that eventually landed me in ICU. I was stretched out of
okay.
my home, put on an ambulance, rushed to the ER, and eventually found myself in ICU and listening to all beeping sounds of the machine. And then I asked myself, how did we get here? And so
Mhm.
most of the time, we don't see that curve. We don't see when we are driven and our drive gets to a level of exhaustion, and it gets to a place when we start to fragment and we start to wonder, why am I doing this? We start to fall apart. And then we get to a place where there's collapse and it's burnout. And there's a research that shows that 47% of women are more likely to burn out than men, who show more
Oh,
around 37%. So it is something that is really real, and it is something that we need to be very self-aware of. But one of the things that I found out from personal experience and with working with female leaders or leaders in general is Burnout is just a symptom. It's a symptom.
Okay.
It is a story of silent neglect. When you constantly and repeatedly neglect yourself. But underneath that, there's a next level is why. Why do we do that? Because
Why?
until we're able to really uncover why, why do I constantly neglect myself, then we're not able to tackle burnout at the root cause.
Mm. You see, your mother was deeply expressed, and I could capture so many things, and I could see the relatability to so many women, not only even the ones who are in the career path, but also those who are maybe in their full-time roles as mothers and wives. It creeps in, generally applies to all women around the world. But I just have a follow-up question to that. What makes women just go beyond their own self and forget themselves to just prove to the world that I can do this, I need to do this. But eventually, it only proves to the world I am ready to sacrifice my health to make you happy. Do you get what I'm
Yeah.
saying? What
Oh,
makes
yes,
women have
absolutely.
that syndrome?
So I think that it's again, it goes down to our identity, how we see ourselves. I remember once I made a joke about a lot of people would categorize me as a strong woman, and I see that a lot, and it gets to a point you're like, no, I don't want that title anymore. I don't
Yes.
want that identity anymore.
Yes.
And that's because when you are when you present a certain way and people then recognize that in you, there's a tendency for you to want to keep up that role as the strong one, and it's
Mm.
really really ingrained in culture and upbringing. you know these are the things that actually shape who we are. you know I've had instances where women will say things like, in my family we were raised to be high achievers.
Yes.
So going to university, going to school, we always had to be top, we had to be top, we had to be top. And so that was ingrained, and for want of a better way to put it, it's almost a programming where you don't know who you are except the performer, the achiever, the ambitious one, the strong one. I come from an African background, culture, but I've had the opportunity of interacting with multiple cultures. And for example, the African culture, the Middle Eastern culture is very communal, and there is a tendency for you to feel a sense of responsibility to family, to
Mhm.
society. And a lot of women and female leaders that I've come across have been the first in their families to accomplish a lot of things. So there's a weight that also comes with that. There is a weight that comes with, for example, women who are the firstborns in the family if you come from a certain culture. So all these things shape that. If you're a woman and you're a wife and you're a mother and you have kids and you're working or you have your own business, there's also a tendency for you to want to show up with the ability to juggle all these balls without falling, without anyone falling. And what happens is that sometimes we don't ask for help because Superman or Wonder Woman in our minds doesn't ask for help. But even
Mm.
Wonder Woman is a part of the Justice League. Sorry, I love movies, so
Yeah,
I
please.
can't help but make that analogy.
Yes.
We all need a Justice League, but as long as we continue to see ourselves as this, and it has its advantages. This is why we go into the marketplace and we're able to, make so many, have so many accomplishments, make so much impact in the world. But I think it draws from an identity that has been designed from when we were much younger about women needing to stand out, needing to do 10 times more wherever you are, and needing to shine and needing to present yourself in a certain way.
Isirma, you talked about culture, you talked about different people around the world and how they treat this. And this is not us vilifying achievements. No, we're not saying achieving is bad. We're just saying how to achieve that balance. right? Achieving things, and I know so many women want to achieve. It's good to see someone like you, Ishioma, who has been very successful in her career. And I would look at you from a young age and say, I want to be like Ishioma. So, but how do women achieve that balance? How can they just put that balance of achieving and taking care of themselves more?
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think first of all, it starts with I would say pause. I know it sounds really simple, but we live in a very fast-paced world, and so we oftentimes we don't have the time to just pause and look at our lives and examine it, and to see where are we going. And like I said, are we nourishing our bodies? Are we nourishing ourselves? So I feel that one of the first ways, actually, I like to take a very systemic approach to change. Again, when we try to do change one way without considering the multiple layers, it doesn't always help. I think it's important that a woman, we're able to pause and say to ourselves, where am I right now? And it's okay that at this point in my life, I may not be able to do that, or I may be able to do this, but we need to be able to slow down. We need to be able to pause. We need to be able to take stock. The thing, it's when we pause, we're able to create space for self-awareness. So first of all, it first starts with, am I aware of what's happening around me? And am I able to question what is going on in my life without judgment? Because it's very easy for us to jump into, oh, I'm not good enough, or you can come up with many narratives that may not be right. And so it's being able to do that, question that without judgment, and then say, what do I need? So there has to be a conscious change. What kind of conversations do I need to have? Whether it's having it with myself, whether it's having it with my partner, whether it's having it with friends. This is where community comes in. It's the same thing about talking about the Justice League, right? So it is being, first of all, being able to, pause, increase your self-awareness, take a conscious change, and then build a structure around how do we reevaluate where we are? How do we make sure that we are getting what we need? And what is it that we are okay to drop now and we can always pick up later without feeling like it diminishes us in any way? I think those are ways to sort of kick off that balance. Yes.
Yes, and that's a very beautiful framework. I think that should be out there. And that is why we're having conversations like this. Press the pause button, have the situational awareness, and take an evaluation of yourself without self-judgment, and then build structures that really support where you want to be. But when it comes to structures, I just want to shift the gear a little bit. Where do you think society or the corporate system is failing women's health consistently?
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. So when I think about this, I think about it that there is a one size fits all approach. Now, I'm going to explain. I feel like what happens in organizations sometimes is that we have made giants around diversity, equity, and inclusion, but I find that in women's health, there is there's the unseen and unspoken conversations that are not having.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
today, a lot of within organizations have not taken into account the biological makeup of women.
Mhm.
And so we are expecting women to work and thrive in an environment that has not taken into account the biological woman and how it impacts her ability to deliver every day on the job. So what do I mean? So things like, hormonal changes that women go through. These are real physiological changes that women encounter. There's a monthly cycle that happens in a woman's life. There is perimenopause. There are fertility, cycles within a woman's life. There is menopause as well. These are conversations that we really need to be able to have where women's health are also concerned within the corporate space. and maternity and return to work, which shows me that organizations can actually adapt. They can adapt when they choose to. So for me, the question is, how can we again pause? How can we come into the table where both male and female leaders are having open dialogue about to be a woman with the various biological and physiological changes that happen in her lifespan in the workplace? I think that's a great way to sort of initiate policy changes. This is a great way to start having conversations about the tools that women need to ensure that they are actually thriving at the place of work.
You know, Ishima, I just want to reflect on something. You said if organizations choose to, they can make this happen. What does that look like? How does an organization choose? Oh, wait, I want to make sure that women in my space, they're considered in every stage of their health life. And how do they make it happen? Briefly, before our time really
Yeah,
runs off.
yeah. Okay. So like I said, I think it's something, it's a conversation that we shy away from. And in this instance, this is where I will challenge male leaders as well within the organization to say, are we open to having that dialogue? It requires that someone will have to champion that cause, but it also means that we should be open-minded to have an open dialogue. It requires us sitting at the table and having that conversation. When we have mental health days today. I know some organizations are already putting in place policies around the monthly cycle. Is how can we accelerate this by having open dialogue? I think it first starts with that, and then we can kick off with what else can we do.
Right. It starts with the dialogue. Right. Um, as all times, as fast as it comes, as fast as it goes, we would really have enjoyed more time with you and learning from you. But just give us like few takeaway. What would you tell women around the world, young and old, um, all careers, whatever field they're in? What would you tell them? What's your last takeaway?
I would say be bold, be bold, take and be willing to evolve. I find that sometimes we feel like evolution is a betrayal. It's not. You can choose something today, you can evolve into something tomorrow, and it requires you to be able to make those bold changes in your life and to be able to embrace them. So I will say, young, middle aged, whatever stage in life you are, be bold, be bold, be willing to evolve, build a community, be a part of a community, and find ways to contribute to that community. It is one of the quickest ways to feeling and living whole.
All right. All right. Dear GatherVerse community, that was Isioma. Be bold, be willing to have those conversations. And please, ladies, take that pause button and an evaluation button. And Isioma, thank you so much for joining us. It was such an honor being in your presence. Our audience, we encourage you, please follow Isioma on LinkedIn. Her details are below. Engage with her. Check out what she's doing. And of course, we welcome you back again. Thank you so much. And as for Fireside Chat, our gather was well. Thank you.
Yes, you did. Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome.